you doing? Welcome to Film Snobbery Live. I am your host, the Film Snob, Nick Baisley. I am joined tonight by my co-host, Mr. Sheri Candler. It's a little weird tonight. Yeah, it's a little weird tonight. We actually, our director, Ryan's not here tonight. He's actually moving like one town over, and he just can't be here tonight. So all the fancy schmancy stuff we normally see, the graphics and the lower thirds and all the scene changes and trailers and all this other stuff, those will all be in the archive. I'm going to have to edit those in later. So mucho apologies. You're stuck with looking at me for a little while. We actually have some cool stuff coming for you tonight. I'm really excited, and I want you guys to all get involved and excited with me. We're going to talk this whole show with marketing person, guru, person who's going to help us fix film, independent film specifically. And she's actually going to, talk about a lot of things that are going on right now. Miss Sheri Candler is with us, so I'm very excited to have her on the show. We've got a lot to talk about, so I'm just going to introduce Sheri. Sheri, thank you for being with us tonight.
Hi, thanks for having me, Nick and Jerry.
It's Sheri Candler, everybody. She's back.
You've given me such an introduction, it's making me afraid.
You should be. No kidding. So we're glad to have you back home safely in the States. You were recently just overseas. You attended the Cannes Film Festival. And that was your first time, your first go at it, huh?
It was my first time in the south of France, though I've been to Paris many times, and definitely the first time at such a gigantic and glamorous festival like Cannes. So it was quite an eye-opening experience, but also quite exciting, and I hope to go back in the future.
What was the biggest lesson that you took out of Cannes?
Well, as far as the festival, I can't really speak to it because what I realized when I got there was that Cannes and probably most big festivals are all about the networking and the meeting people and less about seeing the films. So I didn't really see any films when I was there. I did go to the Kodak tent one night and watch some short films that were made on they were called straight eights, and they were made with Kodak film, just like one canister of Kodak film. That's all you could use. You couldn't edit. You couldn't put any effects on it. It was just, stop and start, point, shoot, that kind of thing. So it was a whole program of people who rose to that kind of challenge. But going to the market was definitely a different experience because I went to AFM last year, and I found it a little bit hard to navigate if you're just an observer and not a buyer or a distributor because everything's in hotel suites. So you have to kind of navigate the hallways that are really narrow and filled with people, and you have to actually go into rooms, and it's not terribly inviting. They usually have a secretary or somebody sitting there texting and couldn't care less about you, and then you have to sort of go further into the room before you can see anything. So this way, it was more like a trade show. You've been to Vegas, you've been to the trade shows, you just wander up and down the aisles, and you can look at anything, you can observe how the business is being done, and look at all the posters, and they have trailers and films showing on a loop and all that kind of stuff. So it gives you a better idea of what this business side is. And if you think that your film is not a product, you need to go to one of these markets because that's completely what it is. It's all based on your poster and maybe your trailer if they get that far into looking at it, and one sheets and catalogs and things like that. So
it actually sounds kind of shady, almost like
well, not shady, but if you've been to the Consumer Electronics Show or something like that, they don't have demonstrations going on at this place, but kinda, they have the posters and they have the films showing and everything. It's definitely film as a product and not film as an art. So this is what happens to your film after you've finished making your art and you want other people to see it. Now it's a product. And now you better think about how you're going to sell it.
Now, from your perspective as a professional in marketing, what do you have to see the product more as? Do you have to see it more, the end result rather? Do you have to see it more as a product or more as a piece of art? Like, are you enticing people to buy into the art, or are you trying to basically shill a product in, like almost any other, consumer type of advocate?
Well, I as a marketing person, definitely I look at it more from the business side than I look at it from the artistic side. I mean, I hope that I can use my creativity, but it's it's more for selling, more for getting people to either watch it or buy it. So I got to look at every project, every script that I get as, how am I going to entice people to watch this? How am I going to figure out where they are and how to get them involved in this process? Now, I come at it from a little bit different standpoint than, say, a sales agent or a distributor does, because they really look at it from selling territories. How can we sell it to buyers in different countries and things like that? And I look at it from gathering audience from the beginning, so that we already have the sales ready. You know, when the film is finished, there are people already waiting to buy it. Not now we got to figure out who are we going to try and sucker into this project. So you know, while I look at it, yes, definitely is film is a product, and I prefer to sell this kind of product than, say, insurance or cars or toilet paper. It's still a business, and it still has to have an audience. There still needs to be, when you're making a film, you still have to think, who am I going to get to watch this? And if you can't really think of anybody, maybe that's not the film you should make. Or you can make it, but it's your piece of personal art that you have at home, and you're not really expecting anybody to watch it or appreciate it as much as you do, which is totally valid. You know, as long as you don't involve a bunch of other people and you don't involve other people's money, then go do your experiment, or go bring your story that you always wanted to tell to life, but, you know, don't try to sell it or anything.
What, you know, I was talking with a couple other people about Cannes that were in attendance, and they had actually said that the whole pre-sales market out there was basically, like, it almost had announced its death knell while at Cannes. Did you feel the same way?
I didn't see much announcements for pre-sales. You know, a lot of co-production, things like that going on, but not so many, you know, getting your script already with sales attached and that kind of stuff. No, people are much more risk averse right now, and they want to see, sales-wise, they want to see a project already finished. They are believing less that people are actually going to make the film that they have on paper. So they want you to prove it by bringing the film to them, and then they'll decide whether it's something they think they can sell.
Now,
so, in my opinion, that's kind of a better way to look at it. You know, if I was a salesperson, I want to know that you're actually capable of doing what you say you are capable of, unless you have a really big reputation, and in the past, you know, you've proven yourself and you've proven your skills. Even some of those films, you know, filmmakers have missteps. They have bombs. They don't always achieve what they set out to do. But it's a much safer investment for me as a salesperson or as a distributor or as a buyer to know what I'm dealing with a finished product than with one that's not made yet.
Did you see a lot of? I mean, obviously there are a lot of networking events, and that's really kind of what Cannes is. You said it's less about watching the movies and more about attending the networking events and stuff like that. Did you come away with a lot of contacts and stuff like that? I mean, did you meet a lot of people that you felt will be interested, let's say, invested in your career in the future, versus people who are just there to kind of lollygag and pretend to be quote unquote producers?
Well, I think there's, you know, both kinds of people. I try to you know, meet with people who are already pretty established in their careers, or established within their whatever end of the industry they're in. If they're a producer, if they're a film fund person who runs a film fund in Europe. I mean, a lot of this was European based. So while I'm an American coming there, my mentality is a little bit different than theirs, because they do have the funding and the government, you know, funds that come into productions, and I look at it all from scratch. You know, we don't have those kind of things. If we get money to make films, it's only because of our bootstraps, you know, of attracting investment. We don't have funding bodies to appeal to. So, so I did meet, you know, people who were fairly rooted in their industry, and you know, I did, especially in the short film corner, meet a lot of newbies and people who are there, you know, short filmmakers who really want to make a career out of their goal, you know, as their goal from their short film and stuff. But you know, a lot of the breakfasts, a lot of the seminars and the panels that went on, and especially in the international pavilions, there were some really heavy hitters on those platforms up in front of you. And I mean, really, 20, 30 chairs, hardly any. So when you met with these people or you talked with these people, they weren't like a room of 500 or 1,000 people. It was you right there with them. And you could ask them questions of John Cooper from Sundance, of James Shamus from Focus Features, of all these people who were very high up, high echelon people. So I would say if you go to Cannes and you have the ability to go to these panel discussions, which go on all day in the tents, in different tents, go, because this might be your only time to really ask whatever it is that you want to ask of a really top person, and maybe even have a chance right afterwards as they're coming down and sort of leaving to give them a card or give them a small pitch or something like that. You may not ever have another chance to do something like that when you go back to LA or New York.
And speaking of people that are approachable to be there, you were also there with our buddy Chris Jones, the author of the Guerrilla Filmmaker's Handbook.
Yeah.
And he was doing his whole shtick there and spiel and stuff like that. Do you see people like Chris, and Chris is, if you guys haven't seen it, he's a phenomenal speaker. I blame the accent mostly. But he's a phenomenal speaker, and you work with you've worked with him, you've worked with John Reese, that being the author of the oh god, I think outside the box office. Sorry, took me a second. Do you feel that having you listen to these guys talk around the country, and you hear a lot of the blog posts out there and stuff like that? Obviously, they have some obligation to kind of plug their wares while they're out there and doing their stuff. Do you find that you don't, if you go to listen to like Chris talk, you go to listen to John talk, or any of these other guys like Peter Broderick or any of these, do you ever feel that like all you're hearing is the same information over and over? Do they occasionally sneak in like a little new nugget of goodness?
Well, I think, Chris and John's messages are just a tiny bit different, because Chris comes at it more from the filmmaking standpoint, having just made an Oscar shortlisted film and having done the Guerrilla Filmmaker's Handbook series all these years. A lot of the emphasis in those books were about making the film. And, some of it about more the traditional distribution methods, although he recognizes, as well as hopefully most people, that is not the way the future for filmmaking distribution is going to be. John Reese and I talk a lot the same. So when John's talking, I just shut up, and just listen to what he has to say. But I didn't see Peter Broderick there. I know Thomas Mai and Stacey Parks were there. I didn't see them, but John saw them. And I would imagine really that even though we all talk about the same thing, it kind of feeds off of each other. It's almost like you need the repeat messaging for people to catch on. Because I'm still shocked when I get people emailing me or sending me a tweet going, I have this project, I want to know if you have any distributors in mind I should go to. I'm like, do you read my posts? Do you know what I'm talking about? Because no, I don't. I don't know distributors for you. What I'm really telling you is that you should be taking your future in your own hands, not necessarily DIY. Hybrid's fine, but let's not be totally dependent on finding a distributor. Mm-hmm. And I think that the more people like Stacey and Thomas and Peter Broderick and John talk and let people know that this is something now that you've got to grasp as reality for you as a filmmaker. There's no, find somebody and dump it on them and hope for the best anymore. You're just going to disappear if you keep on persisting with that mindset.
So, the market is flooded
where it might get frustrating for filmmakers to go, it just sounds like everybody's talking the same. It's probably just because you're paying more attention than most other people. Maybe, you can start filtering out the message more because you've already gotten it. You understand. But there are so many people who are still not getting it. I'm shocked, really. When I was reading Ted Hope's blog post a week or so ago with the lawyer Stephen Beers talking about how he had been to Tribeca's producer's lab and looking at the packaging for films, and 6 out of 10 of the films depended on finding a distributor at the end to make their money back. Mm-hmm. I was like, where are these people? that they're not paying attention to what's going on in the world.
Oh, believe me, I go to different events too, and there are still filmmakers out there who believe that they're going to get their distribution off of a theatrical run, and they're still spending thousands, tens of thousands of dollars on four-walling, and I'm like, that is, unless your movie, I mean, there is a budget at which you can justify four-walling, because I think that the look and the feel of a movie of that scale will lend itself better to that. But if you made like a $10,000, maybe even a $50,000 film, four-walling may not be for you because
Right.
it's just a money pit.
Well, I was going to say, so now we're getting into the live event theatrical situation that John Reese is talking about, which is not to say that your film should go straight to digital or straight to DVD or straight to VOD. It can still play in a live event situation, but maybe not in a cinema.
Right.
It would have to be in a park, in a community center, in a church, depending on where your audience is. But those non-traditional venues are just as legitimate for showing your film to an audience as having it at the Cinemaplex. And they're far cheaper, if not free, if you can really negotiate it with the place that the venue holder. I'm doing that here with the screening series that we have. We don't charge the filmmakers to show the film. We pay the filmmakers to show the film. There are alternatives to that four-walling thing. I think it's all vanity and ego, really, that's telling you, I need to have my film on the marquee, I need to have the poster in the lobby, all that business. That, a $50,000 film, maybe not.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think a lot of it is ego-driven, and you can tell even just by speaking to some of those filmmakers exactly where their ego is at. And
Right.
I understand you work hard and you wanna see that experience because that's what you've been brought up to as a filmmaker to believe, like that's the epitome of your career, is watching that audience view that in a theatrical setting. But it just doesn't always work. Now you mentioned. And both online and right now, you do like a screening series down there in Florida now, right?
Right, and we have another one coming up on Monday. It's a shorts program for all ages, and one of the films in it is going to be our friend Chris Jones' film, Gone Fishing, and he's going to Skype in and do a Q&A with our audience here, which I know in the big cities, a Skype Q&A is not a big deal. But believe me, here in Panama City Beach, Florida, where you can really talk to a filmmaker in London, and you can ask him your questions, that's a big deal, and they love it.
Yeah, Circles of Fire here in the audience actually says that she agrees with you. She doesn't think that the theatrical experience is closed to low-budget and independent filmmakers. You just have to find other venues. There are other people out there. You guys are going to be taking advantage of the rooftop films people out there in New York.
We're not going to take advantage of them.
Well, why aren't you?
But we are going to go to one of their screenings to help support indie film in a live environment that is alternative to being in a cinema.
Right. No, and we've looked at them and stuff too. They are a lot more reasonably priced than a four-wall in a theater, or even doing just a one-off screening for the most part in most of the theaters in New York. And if you're a fan of the skyline and all that kind of stuff, you can really get some great locations and some great ambiance as long as you're not rained out.
The place that we're going to go on Friday night is inside of a school, so they do it on the roof if it's nice, and they do it inside the gym or something if it's not. So it won't be on the roof, but it'll still go on.
Yeah. Now, do you want to tell people where that's at? That's on Grand Ave, right?
It's called the New Design High School, and it's on Grant Avenue, like right before you go across the Williamsburg Bridge. Please don't ask me directions because I don't know New York City at all. But it's on the Lower East Side.
I just read the thing earlier. Little bits and pieces stick in my head. So you were let's go back to Cannes for a second. You were at Cannes. You hung out with Chris Jones and all the other peeps that were out there. Chris did his little the production office vidcast from a boat, which was kind of cool.
Yeah, no, not a boat, a yacht.
A yacht. Oh, well, pardon me.
Big yacht.
Excusez-moi, pardon. Mademoiselle.
That Saturday Night Live skit with, wasn't it with Justin Timberlake or whatever, I'm on a boat or what? That kept going through my mind as we were sitting there.
But so I mean, and did you really? I mean, the biggest thing you took away from Cannes. I mean, was there stuff going on over there in France that you didn't see happening over here? Is there a bit of a culture shift in the way independent film is viewed? Even by the general public versus over here. I mean, is everything new wavy and indie over there like we're all led to believe, or what's the climate over there?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't call Cannes independent film. It's mostly, studio-driven or very European in their flavor of the type of cinema that they pick to showcase there. I was reading some tweets from other people when I was on the ground saying, please let me find a happy film to watch because everything here is very depressing and dark and serious. Sometimes indie film gets a bad rap for that as well. But I would say the films that are playing officially in Cannes are not indie in their nature. They're budget-wise, they're certainly not indie. Now, and I know that there's a Cannes Independent Film Festival that goes on alongside of it, and I wish that I had done more to visit over there because those are probably more my peeps. Also, we visited Cannes in a van, which was, I think, featured on one of Chris's shows about, it's a roving, van that they open up the back of and set up a screen, and they're right there on the Croisette and show short films. And everybody who's kind of strolling along the coast gets to stop and watch a film out of the back of a van. So that was pretty indie. That was pretty guerrilla, like Chris would say.
The guerrilla film people. I still really enjoyed Chris's book. As far as so you've got the screening series down in Florida. You've got you're doing this whirlwind world tour, as it were, like a rock star in the PR world. You're in Cannes. You were in Canada recently. Not in the not too distant past. You're all over the U.S. What's next for you in your career? I mean, are you picking up new projects still, or are you still kind of working with both Chris and John primarily, or what's the next step?
Well, I'm still working with Chris and John. I have been getting lots of proposals from people with films that want help, and I'm only one person, so I have to search through the ones that I think I can work with the most. It doesn't mean that they're, if I don't choose them, they're unserviceable. It just means it's not maybe something I think that would be my strength. I have been getting offers from other people, from people both in Europe and in the United States. I am working as well with the editor of Microfilmmaker magazine. He has a transmedia project that we're putting together for a series of short films. There'll be about 5 of them from directors from around the world. It's a sort of near future apocalyptic series, and we'll be creating sort of an online story world investigating cross-media, transmedia, and how you can engage an audience both through the short films and through the online world that we're going to create. So we're kind of working on that this summer. And I have been getting more involved with the Film Collaborative with Orly Ravid, who's going to be on Rex Sykes' show tomorrow to talk a little bit about film sales and acquisitions and distribution. She's a very good expert on digital distribution and digital platforms and how they work. And if anybody can negotiate your hybrid deal, it would be Orly. So you should listen tomorrow to listen to what she has to say about doing that, because she's done a few of them lately for films that you may have heard of already, that have been out there and done a little bit of DIY, but have been unhappy with the offers they've been getting from distributors. And Orly loves to sit and negotiate. That's her thing. So, and she's all on the side of the filmmaker. She really believes in having the filmmaker control as many rights as they can, and be able to monetize correctly with different distributors in what their strengths are. So not to give all your rights away to one person and hope they treat you the best, but she knows who's the best at doing different things and what you can ask for. So she's definitely somebody who's on your team. Film Collaborative is a nonprofit, so they really have the best interests of the filmmakers at heart, and I'm working with them to help with marketing if a film comes on and wants to start doing, some things themselves and some things they let a distributor do, or they, want to cap the cost of the distributor by saying we're going to do some of it and they're going to do some of it. So I definitely have a few things happening in the future, and I'm planning maybe to go to the LA Film Festival at the end of June.
Do you hear that, people?
I might be talking there with some people, a few people that you might know, like Lance Weiler and Ted Hope and Peter Broderick and Sheila Andreen and, just a few people.
Oh, I know a few of those people. Yeah. I know a few. Some I like more than others. Make sure you tell Peter Broderick if he needs his luggage washed again, I'm available.
I am not commenting on that. I'm going to tell you right now.
Yeah, I know. I'm gonna though. And actually, one of the things I want to talk about now, I want to bring one thing over to John's side of the table here. John Reese, author of the Think Outside the Box Office book. The one thing I want to ask about is, I see a lot of the posts and stuff like that about, that he posts on to like Ted Hope's blog, and he talks about a lot too, and mentions in his book this new position that they're trying to create, and he calls it the PMD, Producer of Marketing and Distribution.
Yeah.
And my question is what's the difference between that, his description of it, and quite frankly, what you do? Because it seems like they're very, very similar. Almost like it's a cross between a PR person and a sales agent.
Yes, in a way, yes, you're right. I mean, there isn't a difference between what I do and what a PMD is. In fact, I'm kind of being groomed as the teacher of a PMD. He coined the phrase PMD. And when we started working together, I said, really, you ought to be focusing more on that title. You should be pushing that solution more than you are, because he was mostly pushing the 50-50 and, the hybrid distribution and things like that. And I'm like, the answer to all this stuff, where the filmmaker doesn't have to devote 50% of their energy to promoting a film, is that they have a person who does that for them, which you say should be the PMD. So, per my suggestion, he has been doing that a little bit more lately than he had been to begin with. And happily, we've been seeing more postings online for filmmakers that are looking for PMDs. We met our first official PMD in Amsterdam when we were there with the workshop. He even had a card made up that said, "I'm the PMD." We're even thinking of T-shirts, maybe. I don't know. But he's definitely working on a syllabus that they can start teaching in schools, because John teaches at Cal Arts in their film directing program, and so he has access into universities and schools that teach filmmaking, and he's making a case for the instructors there to start teaching this as part of a regular course. Now, as far as what maybe makes the best qualifications for a PMD, I think that it's not necessarily somebody who comes from a film production background,
right? Because
I think that they have more of an artistic sense and less of a business one.
Right.
I could be wrong, but
I agree
kind of how I see it. And so somebody who has I think that it's easier to turn a marketer and salesperson into a film marketer and salesperson than it is to turn a filmmaker into a marketing and salesperson.
Well, and I guess my question is where do you find those qualified people? Like someone like yourself, you have, years of experience in the field of what you do, and, to find someone who is, not already working as kind of a, let's call it a PMD in their own field, how to get them to change over to the filmmaking aspect. I mean, how are you finding qualified individuals that are able to handle a job like that? Because ostensibly they're doing they're doing part of the job of what the producer normally does, which is finding the people who are interested in working with the movie in a marketing and publicity type of way, and obviously the distribution side too. That it's kind of a rarefied skill, and I agree with you that it shouldn't necessarily be someone from the creative side, but that is then relying on the creative person to find the business-minded person.
Right, well, that's usually what the creative person does with a producer anyway. But I think of a producer more as the money person, the person who puts together the business plan, that figures out how, the investment's going to go. They're also involved, in how distribution's going to go, although previously they were always more like, where are we going to find a distributor? So I think that either your PMD could be your producer, or and take on some lower level people to help negotiate all the marketing and stuff like that. They have to be also aware of all the distribution choices, and sometimes they may have to go to a distribution consultant and just use them for a short amount of time to make out a plan of how the distribution is going to go, because you have to know what your goal is before you can actually execute it. So on a smaller scale, maybe films don't have a PMD, but the producer has to take on that role and have, underlings that do a lot of the groundwork while they're doing the production, but it has to go on at the same time. You can't go, okay, for the next, month or two, we're going to be doing production, and all this stuff that we've started is going to stop until we get back to it, because I don't have time to deal with it. So they, need to have a crew of people or a couple of people that are helping to keep the engine going while the production's going on and while the post-production's going on. I mean, I think mainly the PMD is helpful to the person who's the writer, director, producer. Where there aren't multiple amounts of people. The producer, writer, director has 3 other jobs that they're doing. So they need to have one person who's taking care of the marketing and distribution end, or they're going to be doing 5 different jobs.
No, it definitely sounds like an above-the-line position, and the only other thing I see with that is on an independent film, where most of the people are working for little to no money. How are you going to find someone who's qualified to do that job, who's going to stick with it for as long as it takes to make, produce and edit and all that kind of stuff, to go to post and then distribute a movie, to do that for the kind of little to no money that it's done? I mean, you generally traditionally are called in after the fact to do the marketing and publicity. I know that you said a while ago, back when you and I were talking around Slamdance, that that's starting to change. People are starting to contact you a little bit beforehand now, which I think is great. But do you see it as I'm trying to see that as as the PMD is described. I really feel that it's an above the line position. How are you going to get someone to stick with you for that long without having to kind of roll through many people? I'm sorry to pick your brain on. Maybe John would be a better guy to pick brain on it, but I have you here now. Because I feel
think that it's the same with what makes a producer stay with a project all the way through. Maybe they haven't written it. Maybe they're not the director, but they stay with the project all the way through to the end. So it's really an integral team member, somebody who's part of the triumvirate, to begin with. Not somebody that you kind of hire at the end for 2 or 3 months and hope for the best. Okay. This is why I'm saying that I don't think that PMDs should be interns. I don't think that it's somebody that you have because they have a grasp on Facebook and so they're your PMD. It really is a very important role in your film. And yes, ideally, they should be there from the script stage, from the very beginning, and they believe so much in bringing the project to the end and to an audience that they're going to stay with you all the way through. And they have to be treated as such. They can't be treated as a secondary person or somebody to give duties to because you don't feel like doing it. They have to be just as much of a decision maker in the beginning of the process as the director is and as the producer is, and as even more important than the DP, because the DP is only there for the production and that's it.
Right.
They aren't there for the whole project. So that's why John, causes gasps whenever he tells people that if you had to have a choice between paying a DP and paying a PMD, drop your DP. or drop your first AD, because you can do that yourself. It's only going to be during the production part that you're going to do that job. After that, all those people go to the wind, and they couldn't care less what happens to the project.
No, I mean, I agree. There's jobs and there's careers, and while, you know, a DP may be a DP as a career, you know, they take jobs. And, you know, I agree to that to a point. But we actually do have another question from the audience. Kings of Fink, our good friends out there.
Hi, Jeff and Julie.
I know, they're awesome, aren't they?
They are.
They are, and they're both here tonight.
Good.
And they have a question for you. They say, are you doing what you set out to do, and did you choose this, you know, trajectory as for, I guess, your career, and what drives you to continue moving forward in the direction you're moving?
Did I set out to work in marketing for film? No, I went to film and broadcast school, and then I did production for a little while, mostly in broadcast television and in radio, and found that it was far less glamorous than it's made out to be when you're in school. And in fact, I found editing to be like worse than pulling my teeth out, because I am not a patient person, and you have to be extremely patient to be an editor. So then I started studying more about marketing, because I thought that's a creative endeavor that's business related and something that I could do in the business world that was still palatable to me as a creative person. And went into marketing really for film and broadcast equipment. So it was kind of a, you know, melding of the two interests, but equipment's not that exciting either. So it was not until I started working with a film festival and meeting other filmmakers and going, you know, I think there's a need for my marketing skills back to working with the real creative aspect, which was making content, not having equipment to make content. And that was, you know, fairly recent. I've only been doing this for maybe a year and a half, 2 years, not very long, but it sort of fortuitously came at the time when everything started to crumble and the distributors were far less reliable to find. So what do? You know, I even asked the questions when I found, you know, filmmakers when we ultimately had the festival and said, what are you going to do with this film, you know, if you don't find a distributor?
That actually feeds into...
It hadn't even occurred to them, you know.
Yeah, that actually feeds into my next question here. Marinelle, our good friend Marinelle, asks... question, how do you respond to filmmakers who approach you with their films that are already finished, they haven't really budgeted for marketing, and basically are looking for a miracle?
Yeah. I have to really look at the project, and it has to be fantastic. I mean, utterly fantastic, with no doubt that I can connect it with an audience. And it rarely happens. And they are rarely patient enough to deal with the kind of marketing they're going to have to do, which is, you know, online and social media marketing. And that takes time. You can't add 1,000 followers tomorrow. And even if you do, you can't get them all to buy your DVD, or you can't get them all to go to your film.
Oh, if anyone knows miracles, that, it's Sheri.
You know? And so it's really, I found, pretty difficult to take on that job, because, you know, they just don't have the patience, and they don't have any money. One, they don't really want to pay you, but for sure they don't want to spend any money on, you know, redoing key art or redoing a website or even recutting a film, because there are a couple times when I've seen it and gone, you know, if it was a horror film, maybe it should be more horrifying, or it may be more psychological, or, you know, it's such a mishmash that it's nothing, that it, you know, there's not that much appeal. Then you just have to go, there's not really anything I can do with this. And you know, it's, I'm sorry. Maybe you can find somebody. I will tell Marinelle that I got a film maybe a year ago, and I'm not going to name the film, but it was from a filmmaker. It's the only time that somebody sent me a screener that I actually mailed it back because I didn't want it in my house. It was awful. And I recently found somebody who took it online, but she was promoting it online. I was like, you know, good on you, sister, that you could find a way to market this, because I don't see any future for this film. But, you know, that's just me. It wasn't a fit for me. Maybe she found it a fit. That's totally possible. That, you know, just because I don't take on your project or somebody else doesn't take on your project doesn't mean that it's not able to be sold. It's just that that's not the person to do it for you.
We have another couple questions that come in. You're on fire tonight.
Oh,
So the other question we got is from FilmSnobbery 26700, which I believe is David Baker.
Oh, okay. Hey, David. All the way in Scotland. Boy, he's up late.
I gotta tell you, this show's worth it. Just saying.
Absolutely.
But his question, like I said, I believe it's him. Yeah, said, what's a good ratio of social media investment to traditional PR/ad spending, assuming there's a budget? Social media can't be ignored, obviously, but it can't do everything either.
That's true. Social media can't do everything. I am not a big proponent of ad spend because it takes an awful lot of ad spend to make an impact. That's why, Hollywood films, they talk about the marketing. They're really talking about the advertising spend is just astronomical because you have to, what's the traditional 7 times somebody has to see a message before it sinks in. All those 7 times for, times the thousands of people that you want to see it before it makes an impact. Usually independent filmmakers don't have that kind of budget. So I really steer them more to traditional PR, both for traditional publications, if you can get it, but most likely if you have no stars or you're not a star director yourself, you're not going to have Variety cover your film. But there are plenty of other online publications that will. And I think that's the other part of your spend, and it's more time. And if you're doing it yourself, then it doesn't cost you anything but time. If you have somebody else who has some relationships already with publications or bloggers, you have to pay for that, for that time. But I think that it's far more effective to use social networking and as, your 2 places to spend your time or your money.
Okay. Now, we have another one here from Nick Alderton, and I like the fact that he spells his name the same way I do.
He's staying up late, too. He told me it'd be 3 o'clock in the morning his time.
We bring him in from all over. I gotta have you on every show. Raise my ratings. So the question Nick asks are you market the film, market the filmmaker, or a combination of the two? And I know that you're a big proponent now of building identity and building audience based on identity before you settle into your project.
Right.
So,
yeah, if you haven't already done that and you have a project that you're trying to build awareness of, then you're going to be doing it together. But I think it's just as important to build your own identity as it is to build an identity for your film, because you don't want to start over with every film that you have. Mm-hmm. So people invest in people, both from crowdfunding or investment standpoint or from attention standpoint. So I think that for anybody who hasn't started their online identity, and I would strongly encourage you to Google your own name and see how much you stand out. If the first 3 pages aren't just you, all references to you, you got a lot of work to do.
Yes, you and
I would start doing that now before you have a project that you're trying to get out there.
Yeah, you had actually sent me a link one time on Facebook, I'm assuming you sent it to like everyone in your friends list, but I had actually done that, and luckily I passed the test.
You were digitally distinct?
I was digitally distinct.
Awesome.
Yes.
I would expect you to be, Nick. You have a show, so this is one of your brand building things, is that you have a lot of references on Google, and that's good. Not everybody has a show. I'm not saying everybody should have a show, but they should be doing something that causes not just you talking about yourself, because that's not the best way to self-promote. It's other people talking about you. And so what are you doing to do that? One way is blogging. Another way is leaving comments on other people's blogs. Definitely having social networking, and not all just Facebook and Twitter, but as many places as you feel you can cope with. I wouldn't say, you have to have 50 different accounts on every social media platform going, because you can't take care of all that. But LinkedIn is a good place to have one, if only for all the traffic that LinkedIn brings. A lot of times if somebody hasn't started doing much on their own branding, LinkedIn will at least get you to the first page of Google, if you have your name on it. So I definitely think that anybody who's listening right now and hasn't been doing this needs to get started. If you're really planning on making this a sustainable career, that people identify you with a project. Because if they don't know who you are, they're not going to pay much attention to what you have to say. and they're not going to give you money. So yeah, I think it's just as important, and you need to do both things.
Kings of Fink has another question for you, and then I have a question for you. Kings of Fink, Julie and Jessica asks, when Sheri is hired early in the process, do you also consult on the story to help make a more marketable product?
Oh, this is such a dangerous question because I don't really feel that I am the most qualified to consult on scripts. I can only tell you what I think would make something more marketable, but I really shy away from being a script doctor because I don't know about writing scripts and what you're trying to say, and I couldn't even help you, to say it. I can tell you what I think works and what I think would resonate more with people that you're trying to reach, but I can't tell you how to rewrite it. Mm-hmm. So probably best to take my notes and take it to a real script doctor. Take it to Jeannie and get her to help you brainstorm on it. I can definitely say what I think works or what I feel like the audience would get out of either what you are saying or what you're not saying. Maybe you think what you're saying is totally clear, and what I can read from being a consumer and being able to get into the minds of different consumers to say, I don't think you're making the connection here because I don't think they're going to see what you see. But no, I don't feel like I'm qualified to tell you how to rewrite your script, and I wouldn't want to do that.
Fair enough. I had a question, but I forgot what it was in all of that. Also, there's another question from the audience. The folks at Film Courage, David Brannon and Karen Worden. You can listen to them.
Hey, David and Karen.
You can listen to them live every Sunday at noon over at that's Pacific Standard Time over at latalkradio.com/film. ?
And I do, quite frequently.
Don't we all? They're awesome people. But their question was, curious to hear your take on independent film actors and the work that they put in on marketing, promotion, and social media. Are we seeing enough from indie actors? And actually, I have a quick comment on that before this. I actually had a conversation with, if they're still in the audience here somewhere, the people at Golden Earrings, Mary and Kerr. We actually had a conversation about this recently because something like this was brought up on Ted Hope's 37 or 38 things that are wrong with stuff, where he didn't believe that actors and actresses were doing enough, where I actually almost agreed with that, but Mary and Kerr actually had said that to them it's a gig and they need to move kind of from gig to gig, and they do market and they promote themselves, but it's usually within other circles and not necessarily directly related to the project they're working on, because they need to do that job and then move on to the next job because that's how they make a living. But they do market, it's just socially in other areas, not necessarily directly related to the film that we're just working on. But that being said, what's your take on that?
Well, I think if you look at Hollywood films, all the major actors that are, when the film is finished, they go on the press junkets and support the film. So I think you should expect about the same kind of support from an indie filmmaker that Hollywood asks of their stars of their films. I mean, I would hope that an actor doesn't take a film just because it's paying them well and they couldn't care less about the film. That's not somebody I'd want to work with. I would really like to think that we all work as a team and we're all trying to make this a success, not we're taking our paycheck and running to the next job. So I think that they should, do I think that it should take up a majority of the time to promote your film? No, I understand, they have other things to do, but I think that's part of the audition process if you're trying to decide. And I think that Ted has said this before, especially about crew and about actors, is if you have two people who are basically the same qualifications and one has a pretty good following and understands social media and understands, dealing with publications and things, and the other person doesn't, pick the connected person because they're going to be the most useful to you and your project. So, and clearly say that from the beginning. We expect everyone here to work as a team to help and promote and make this film a success, because if it's a success, everybody who works with it is a success. And that's what you should want. You shouldn't just look at this job as a paycheck. If you're doing this job just for a paycheck, there are so many other jobs you could get that you can just collect a paycheck and go home. Don't get into show business. Don't get into filmmaking if you really don't love it and you just see it as money making.
Well, and we actually stirred up a really good hornet's nest with that one on the in the chat room here. There are a lot of people talking about it, saying that, you know, if the FilmSnobbery 26700 says if they're not getting paid, they took the role for the exposure. All the more reason to help promote it. And there's a few other comments very similar to that too. Speaking of connecting and exposure and getting the word out there and stuff like that, I want to take a couple of minutes to talk about crowdfunding. You know, crowdfunding over the past I'd say 6 months to a year specifically has gotten absolutely huge. I mean, I was just reading, there's a new French site that's very similar to what Piracy is doing out there. There's the new one that Ed Norton just started. There's, you know, obviously we have the old standbys, Kickstarter and Indiegogo. Do you believe, just from your perspective, from where you sit, that the market on crowdfunding is getting flooded and overexposed into the point where it's getting very difficult to get a project funded because there's so much out there, that so many people basically out there hat in hand asking? Because to me it looks like one long, you know, line of people saying, can I have some money?
I think we lost Sheri.
And we might have lost Sheri. Let's give it a second. Hold on. Let's see if we get it back. Yeah, we lost Sheri. She no there. She gone.
Let's condense the question, so as soon as we get her back, just say, is crowdfunding getting too crowded? Simple as that.
I don't want to do any of that. I asked the question. I want an answer.
It was a good question, Nick.
I thought so too. I know that you and I have discussed it a lot, Jerry.
We've been discussing it for a while, yeah.
We have been.
So
I'll tell you
I
what.
want to hear the answer.
While we're waiting for Sheri, do me a favor, because I can't see the chat room right now, Jerry. How are other people reacting to that?
Marinelle just said she wrote an article on crowdfunding, shameless plug.
She would do that, wouldn't she?
Well, wink it, Marinelle.
Yes,
wink
hey.
us to your shameless plug.
Here.
And King of the Fink is asking me to do a Sheri impersonation. I can't, though.
No. But that being said, I think we have
But
Sheri
we have
back.
the real one.
Sheri, are you back?
I am back, and I had this whole thing that I was talking about crowdfunding until I heard the dial tone.
Oh, I'd say rewind it a bit and let's start from the beginning, because we didn't hear any of it.
Okay, well, I was going to say, from our perspective in our little independent film bubble, we think that crowdfunding is like rampant and flooded in the market.
Mm-hmm.
Step outside of that bubble and talk to your parents and talk to your friends who aren't involved in this industry at all, and ask them if they know of Indiegogo and Piracy and Kickstarter. Mm-hmm. And I guarantee they won't know what you're talking about. So no, I don't think that this is just a flooded market now rampant with crowdfunding options and that people know about it. No, we have a long way to go before everybody is tapped out with crowdfunding initiatives. Now, do I think that filmmakers are depending far too much on the same pool of other filmmakers? Yeah. I think that they should be looking more at what their project is, again, who their audience is, and going to outside sources, outside of the filmmaking community, and finding those people and presenting their project. And like David Brandon has said on his blog about that helps you to judge whether you really have an audience for your film before you sink all your time and effort and money into it. If you can't raise $15,000, say, from a group of people who should be interested in what you're making, mm-hmm. that's telling you something about what you can expect when you finish making it.
Okay.
And maybe it's saving you from a little heartache. Maybe you need to work a little harder at whatever this film is, or you have another idea that needs to be developed, that this one isn't going to fly, or it's not going to fly at the current stage of development that it is. And it actually, you know, it's like a blessing that it's going to save you from all the heartache and the time and the energy and everybody else's time and energy if you know that right up front, than it is if you've already decided to spend the money and you find out that it goes nowhere.
Well, Moments of Film asks, do pre-sales work for people? You know, people, I don't know if that's referring to like pre-selling a DVD copy or doing a pre-sale, you know, if we're back in pre-selling territories or something of that nature, but let's just go with the smaller, more indie, pre-selling DVDs. I mean, someone's selling, you know, 30,000, you know, DVDs for $10 a piece. are people still, I mean, Jerry's doing that. He's trying to, but he's kind of disguising it as almost, he's pre-selling his, well, he's not even pre-selling anymore. He's selling his DVD as a way to fund his next film. But he's kind of doing it through Indiegogo. Do you see a lot of other people still doing the whole pre-sale game? And is that dangerous? Because you're selling something that doesn't exist. It's vaporware, and it may not exist.
Well, I guess what you're talking about is the perks pie, and a part of the perks that are the DVD.
Well, there was a question in there somewhere, yeah.
When I get involved in a lot of projects, it doesn't have, I don't even look at what the perks are. I just think about how much money can I afford to give somebody because I like them and I like their project. And I don't care if I get a DVD or not.
Well, no, that's really...
I really think that you're more likely to get a donation because people really like your project and they really like you than they really want your DVD or they really want your download.
Well, that's really interesting because
basically you're buying the film.
Right.
I think they're really buying into you and buying into your dream, which is not at all unusual concept for filmmakers because that's how you get investors in the first place. Is they are buying into a concept that you're presenting, that you're passionate about, and they really feel that you can make this happen.
Okay, I got you. It's interesting because, Jerry, I know, is going through that problem right now where, he's got a great list of perks and all this other kind of stuff on his, Indiegogo stuff, and the biggest problem he's finding is that people don't read. First of all, that's the biggest issue. People will watch his video, his pitch video, and then they'll ask him questions. They'll email him questions about stuff that was in the video, and then also he's got a very detailed explanation of what's going on with the film and how it's kind of related to his first film, and the list of perks include a copy of his film, and they'll email him back and just be like, so I donated $20. When can I get your movie? And they're all like, he's like, no, you get the movie at $30 or however it's set up. But it's just really interesting that you're kind of on the same level I am of like, if I like the person, I'm going to give to them regardless of what I get back. Versus people who genuinely have things to give back. Most people don't seem to care or pay attention.
Well, I think maybe Jerry is connecting more with people outside of the film industry who don't understand how crowdfunding works. So they don't know, they think what you're selling them is an already in existence DVD because that's what they're used to spending their money on. And they have no idea this concept you're talking about of donating money and getting something but not until it's finished. And so I think there's a certain amount, for crowdfunding, there's a certain amount of education for consumers. And I'm talking about outside of the filmmaking community, to the general public, the people who, you want to see your film, you're going to have to explain what crowdfunding is, because we all just assume everyone knows, and maybe that's not the case. So maybe what Jerry is finding is not that they're lazy, but they don't really get the concept of what you're asking them to do because they've never done this before. They don't know about crowdfunding. They don't know how this goes about. Or there might even be some people who think that this is investment, and they're going to get some kind of money out of it if you make money. And that's not what this is. In fact, I've heard on some, financial blogs and stuff lately where they mix up crowdfunding as investment, which it's not. It's donation. That's why SEC rules don't apply, because nobody's getting a percentage of the film when the film is finished.
Okay, interesting. Now I'm going to because we're actually already past the hour, but it doesn't really matter at this point. All right, so
you guys went on for 5 hours the other day, so what difference does it make?
Pretty much, right? Just give them what they want, as they say. But so I have a question relating to I'm gonna put your skills to work in a real world environment. The real world being FilmSnobbery.
Okay.
Okay, so here's what we got, and so we've got a show here. We have a website, we have the Twitter, we have the Facebook, we have all this stuff. We have a fairly good reach and a decent reputation within the community from what I understand. I could be wrong about all of that. But, so in your opinion, who do you believe our audience is, and where would you take like FilmSnobbery in a way that would be a monetary direction? You look at someone like John Reese, he has a book, he has an end product to market. You look at Chris, he's got that as well. He has a show as well. He's got his movies. They're both filmmakers and stuff like that. They have these careers, and now they do the speaking gigs and the seminars, all that kind of stuff. All of that is revenue generation. Traditionally, with most websites, a lot of people rely on ad sales and stuff like that. That well is kind of very difficult unless you're in the hundreds of thousands to millions of views. To someone like us, what direction would you take Film Snobbery?
Well, clearly, your target market is filmmakers or people who are interested in aspects of filmmaking.
Yes.
These are I have to tell you, because I'm in the same realm, my target audience is filmmakers, not, and then I go out from there, from the projects that I work on, then I look at the target audience of the project. Filmmakers are tough. They're a tough sell. They don't want to spend money for anything. And they know a lot of the marketing tricks, so it's really tough to get them to part with some cash. And so that's my bad news for you, Nick, is that that your target market are micro-budget filmmakers. Mm-hmm. They want everything for free. They don't want to pay for anything.
Oh, I got you right there. That's
so you're
why
definitely going to have to look at the sponsorship issue, because those guys, the crowdfunding and asking filmmakers to give you money, good luck.
Oh,
good
no,
luck with
look,
that.
I'm done beating my head against the wall on that one. I have, it's taken me a year and a half, but I've finally given up on that. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that, jokingly and lovingly to the audience. I understand
right, in the most loving way possible. You guys are cheapskates.
Yeah, totally. What the frick, guys? No, it's understandable. I mean, everyone is, and plus everyone out there is trying to raise money right now too. I mean,
right,
for their
they're
own
all
projects.
struggling. I know, I get it. So I would say for you, your biggest thing is just to raise your numbers every week, is because that's what's going to attract the sponsors to your show. You want to you have a large variety of guests. You may think about having extra content during the week. You do have blogs, and you do have, I would have a lot more variety of bloggers if you can get it, because that helps to spread your word out to communities beyond what you reach yourself. Mm-hmm. So having Jessica and Julie blog for you is great, because Julie and Jessica have an audience, and so now you can access them because they're on your site. And you'll need to do more of that, and try to access definitely some more sites that have bigger traffic. I mean, you're going to be doing something with Chris Jones. That's good. That's an audience in Europe that you weren't reaching before, and he's got quite a big following. So that's a good market to tap into to get more listeners, more people downloading your show, or more views basically on your website. Yeah, you have to really concentrate for yourself on how are you going to get sponsors interested in your show, because you're not going to get money out of the filmmakers.
No, not at all.
Telling you that.
Well, now that I've had my free consultation, do you like that thinly veiled attempt? That was great. No, we actually, speaking of our good friends, Kings of Fink, and if you aren't reading their articles over at FilmSnobbery.com, Peep Show, it's their column. It's really good. So they actually have another question too. It says, what's the one thing that indie filmmakers aren't doing but should be doing to create a viable career for themselves? Is it all come down really to the marketing, or at some point do they actually have to have like a good product, or can they really spin crap into gold? Definitely you have to be a master of your craft. So I would say first and foremost, maybe not all of your projects should be distributed. Maybe some of them are just practice, and just building up to bigger and better things. So let's stop thinking that the moment you make a film, it's a masterpiece and it's gonna set the world on fire, because for the most part, it's probably not. The best thing that you can do is, one, build up a reputation for yourself, build up an identity for yourself. Even if you want to end up working for somebody else in the industry, it only helps you to be a recognizable name. So the more you can do that, the better off you're going to be. And you should be concentrating on making the best films that you can, telling the best stories in the best way that you can. And I don't think that learning process ever finishes. I think that something can always be improved, something can always be made better.
more collaboration. I think I would like to see independent filmmakers helping each other a little more instead of tearing each other down. It really saddens me to see people at such polarizing positions against anybody who wants an education, anybody who wants to learn something new, and, well, that's not art. You're not an artist if you want to do that. Oh, my God.
Are we talking to Ted Hope again?
Why should we tear down anyone for wanting to learn? You know, education is not a bad thing, and experimentation is not a bad thing. And maybe what they experiment with is not for you, but all of the power to them. And we want to hear how that turned out, good or bad. We want to hear, because we love you as a filmmaker, and we're all in a community together. And lately, I've been feeling like that is not what's happening. Most people can't wait to tear you down or can't wait to criticize you about what you're doing. And I guess you just have to tune them out and go, yeah, whatever. You know, I'm probably not going to see you much longer because they're not thinking community. They're not thinking of being helpful. They're only thinking of tearing you down. And I really think for all filmmakers to be sustainable, they need to sustain each other. All of us banded together can be far more effective than each one working on their own.
I agree with that, but you know as well as I do, there are cliques. And
Yeah.
usually those cliques are separated by dollar signs.
True, but I mean, that doesn't mean that you can't start your own clique, you know, and I mean...
Oh, I
yeah,
agree. I agree with everything that you just previously said. I really do. I just think it's an unfortunate happenstance that occurs within the community. It's just, I think that there are a couple groups of people out there who tend to exclude, yeah, but they exclude backhandedly, and that's the thing that angers me, and it gets me really heated, is that they're the people who are out there promoting community without actually participating, and at the same time being very self-serving to their own ends, and that angers me. And so but I agree that, you know, there are some great people out there doing great things within the community. You have Pericles Loons over at the Annapolis Pretentious Film Society, who is curating, you know, a film screening series over there. Yourself included down in Florida. David and Karen over at Film Courage Interactives. You know, and there are a lot of other places. I mean, even like if you want to take it to a higher level and look at the, you know, higher level independent films and some of the stuff that is screened over at like the Alamo Draft House out in Texas. I mean, it's, you know, the people are doing it. It's just, you know, I think that there's a bit of segregation, and I think that you know, really it's only going to get better when the guy who spent $2,500 on his movie is taken as seriously as the guy who spent $250,000 on his movie or $1 million on his movie. I don't think the separation of resources should be so distinct. I mean, they at the end result is they each accomplished to make a 90-minute feature, or, you know, however what it was, and at which point that puts them on the competing ground of art versus you know, the you know, the dollar signs. But so many people, and it's not just the filmmakers, it's the industry as a whole focuses on budget. And I think, and also on box office returns and stuff like that once you get to a higher level and all that kind of stuff. And it's just, I think it's unfortunate. But yeah, that's my rant on that.
No, I agree with what you say. Not everybody's going to be in love with your project, you know. Not every project is going to be the favorite of everyone. But I try, at least, to see the value in every filmmaker and what they're trying to accomplish. It may not be something that's of interest to me. Their subject of their film or the story that they wanted to tell may not be something I'm interested in, but I'm still interested in their process. I'm still interested in them as an artist and being a viable member of the community. Now, I don't like it when somebody who says they're a viable member of the community only uses the community to give them money or go see their film or buy their film or say, if you don't follow me, I'm not going to follow you, that kind of stuff. Where, you know, either it's genuine or it's not. And if it's not, then I don't tend to pay attention anymore. So I think that it's best to support everyone in their efforts of whatever they're doing. But that doesn't mean that I have to love everybody's project and everything that they turn out.
That was the most diplomatic sentence I've ever heard, and that was awesome, by the way. You really should consider running for political office.
Hey, I'm in PR. That's what
Exactly.
I'm supposed to do.
No, I agree. It's very difficult. It's a tough position, especially when those exclusionary voices are larger and more broader voices than some of the people who are trying to get included, who are at the start of their careers and are trying to get into the community and are just kind of pigeonholed into the low, no budget indie people. And
Well, then don't be pigeonholed. I would say then, have to know that in one way, this is like a hazing. This is like having to earn your place.
Okay.
The more you try and the more effort you make, people will recognize it. If you just want to sit and whine and tear down the people you find higher up because they won't pay attention to you, you're never going to get ahead. You're never going to be accepted. Except that there are some people who are more successful. And that's okay, but, and I wouldn't say to stop doing what you're doing because they're more successful. Don't be intimidated. You have just as much a right, just as much validation to follow what your path is as they do. And don't expect them to raise you up necessarily. It would be great if they did, and I think that some of our, higher ups should probably be doing more of that instead of just talking about it. But in a way, you have to earn it too. You can't expect it to just be given to you.
And I agree that it even goes the other way too. I mean, a lot of the low, no budget people are very, they get very. I'm going to use the word jealous because I think that's the only term that really applies. They really get very...
I think we lost Sheri again.
Okay. Well, that's okay.
I figure I'll stop you early on before you get into a nice rant.
Fair enough. But so Jerry, what's going on in the chat room in the audience here? We got some agreements, disagreements. So what's the situation?
It's pretty much all agreements. They all love Sheri, and they all pretty much agree with her.
Wow, so polarizing.
Yeah. Any comments? Anyone want to step away from the herd? Not that I'm calling you a bunch of sheep. I should not have said that.
Well, that's okay. Here's
what do you do when you leave me on alone? I screw up.
Jerry, I tried to give you a moment to
We
shine.
love you all. We love you all.
No, we don't. But no. So Sheri's back, and do you also find that there's all right? So the low no budget independent filmmaker people, they pretty much do the same thing because to the higher up people because they are more successful, and so you get that whole they're a dick because they're because they're not really indie or something like that because they make money, they make a living. They get it too. So.
Right, yeah, no, I agree that there's, a bit of jealousy and sour grapes and that kind of stuff. And I just think that it's not positive to do that. I think that you should, obviously those people who are successful have done something right to get into the position that they're in. So I'm not saying everything they tell you is gold and you should do exactly what they say, but give them a little credit. They wouldn't be in the position they're in if they were idiots. So definitely there's something to learn by what they have to say. I wouldn't say that you should kowtow and wait for their approval before you do anything because there are just some people in the world who are not going to help you no matter what you do.
Yeah.
So don't wait. Just do your thing. And the more you can make a name for yourself and the more that you can to get recognition for yourself and your project, the more notice that you'll get. Believe me, if they feel you're successful, they want to tie themselves up with you. So concentrate on that. Don't concentrate on constantly chasing them. People will find you when you're successful.
Although at that point, it just seems disingenuous. It's kind of, but that's the game too. I mean, and do you find that you kind of sit on the you're inside but outside. Do you find that the independent film world is a lot of politics?
A lot of politics, yes.
A lot of politics.
And I wouldn't even say I'm on the inside, no. I'm trying, I'm doing my thing, but I'm not, that's not, doesn't take up a lot of my day figuring out how to get into the inside. I really think that if I do my best to do the best work and to make a name for myself, they will just, they'll have to acknowledge you because you can't be denied, when you have accomplishments and when you have people that, regard you well. So that's all I concentrate on really is trying to associate with promising people and people who are supportive of me, and I'm supportive of them. And if other people like it, great. And if they don't, fine. You know, they're not going to help me anyway, so I'm not that worried about them.
Well, I'm definitely supportive of you, Sheri, and we really appreciate you taking the time with us tonight. I want to just kind of take an aside and let everyone know, if you want to get like some more information on what Sheri is doing and where she's at and all that kind of stuff, you can go over to www.shericandler.com. You can also follow her on Twitter at twitter.com/Sheri Candler. And
you can see me in New York City this weekend.
I was just going to bring that up. There's a tweet up in New York City, and we're really trying hard to get a hold of you while you're out there. It's just it's tough. There's a lot of stuff going on in and around New York this weekend. If you're this next week, not even next week, this week. If you guys are around in New York, there's the New York City Filmmakers Festival happening, I believe between the 3rd and the 5th. There's the Staten Island Film Festival, that's from the 2nd to the 6th or 7th or something. And then there's the Hoboken Film Festival, which isn't even in Hoboken, oddly enough. It runs from the 6th to the 10th, I think, or something like that. We're going to be at all three of those. Sheri, you're going to be doing a tweet up at in New York City, while John Reese is he's participating in the kind of joint IFP John Reese Think Outside the Box Office workshop, and that's going to be this weekend, actually, Friday, June 4th.
Well, the tweet up is Friday, June 4th,
right.
And John's going to be there too because I'm making him.
Yes.
He may not stay really late because he has to be there super early on Saturday morning, but he's coming. And then Saturday and Sunday, we're both going to be at the workshop. I'm not on their official event site because I'm sort of a late ad, and they already have that up and running for a while, so I haven't been added, but I'm going to be there. So anybody who wants to hear more of me talking. In addition to Caitlin Boyle and the wonderful Lance Weiler, who you've had on your show before.
Oh, we've had Lance. We know
We'll
Lance.
all be there on Saturday and Sunday.
Mr. DIY Days himself.
Yes.
Yes. I got to give Lance credit. He really does diversify out there. I mean, he gets his own name out there with the whole DIY Day stuff, but he also works on, he just had that streaming nominated show Radar, and he's got he's got the new movie that he's working on, but he's even got like a video game that you can play on your cell phone with it on the Droid phones, a little transmedia type of stuff going on with that. I was pretty impressed with what he's got going on. I actually spoke with him recently about kind of what he does in his career, and specifically on the speaking circuit, because it's always been something that I've been interested in. It's astounding what if you can break into that world, kind of what your options are.
Right, but Lance is a great guy. Lance, with the DIY Days itself, he does an awful lot of work for it to be free for everyone to attend. He comes up with the sponsors and people to pay for putting on the event so that you guys can come and not have to pay anything, and get all the speakers that people want to hear from and not have to pay anything.
Well,
so,
unless you had to
that's a good
contribute
thing
to
for him. I mean, who does that? Almost nobody.
No, I agree. It was a great. I had a great time. I was there.
Right.
It was a really good time, and I met a lot of great people. So this John's stuff out in New York. It's a 2 or 3 day event.
It's a 2-day event. It's all day Saturday and most of the day on Sunday, because he's going to do workshopping of projects. I think he has 5 or 6 projects that he's going to do of the participants that are coming to the workshop. So if you have a project either in the script stage, actually preferably in the script stage, or pre-production, or if the project is finished and you haven't thought about doing this stuff yet, he will come and workshop the project. When you walk away, you will have an outlined plan that you can put into action when you leave. So
Cough, Jerry.
It's totally
Cough.
customized.
Cough, Jerry. You should do that. Cough. Excuse me.
Yeah, thanks.
Not a problem. End cough. Well, no, I think that's really good. And if you're going to be there, we're going to try to be there too. I would love to have a tweet up with all the East Coast and New York and New England people with Sheri and John and all that kind of stuff. It'd be fun. If you are going to be at any of the other film festivals that I mentioned earlier, Staten Island, New York City Filmmakers Fest, or Hoboken, look for us. Jerry and I will be in and out around all of those festivals all this week, starting tomorrow. Actually, I'm coming up to Staten Island tomorrow. So Maria and Rob, hopefully that couch is warm and comfy. So yes, so it's good. Sheri, what do you got going on after? Where can we expect to see you and what you're doing and what you're working on after this little workshop deal? What's your next stop?
Well, I haven't decided yet, but I'm thinking that my next stop is probably the LA Film Festival, which is around the 17th or so of June.
Okay.
And after that, I don't have any plans. I mean, I don't, as far as traveling goes, haven't been asked anywhere else. I know John will be heading for Australia, and I'm going to sit that one out. Yeah, I'll probably be doing, projects for other people this summer and getting some things off the ground and, raising up some recognition for some filmmakers' projects.
King as a Fink was asking, are you able to submit a project even if they can't be there?
No.
No. Sorry, guys.
No, because
gals.
we it's a special thing just for people who are as part of the reason why you would come to the workshop is that you get this, service done for you. Because, for the price of the workshop, that's not even an hour's worth of consulting time that you would have from a consultant. Not even an hour's worth. So if you went to a private consultant to do this, you get 2 days full of information in addition to a custom plan that you would only, not even be able to afford to have a consultant do for you. So it's one of the perks of seeing John live and getting something to take away.
Well, it looks like everyone in the chat room is definitely all Twitter about having you come on out to LA and hang out there. So you're gonna have to set up another tweet up with you. Does it ever weird you out that you kind of? It seems like you started out in the independent film world. You're working with John, you're working with Chris, and all that. But it seems like you've kind of carved out your own niche of fans that are kind of slightly dependent upon you, fan dependent even.
Don't even go there.
I just went there. I went there. I said it. It's out there now. There's no takebacks.
I blame David Brandon for it, actually.
Yeah. Well, yeah, me too. I blame him for lots of things. David is awesome. I had such a good time meeting David and Karen when I was in LA, and I know that you'll have the same awesome time that I had because you know everyone there.
I do. I know a lot of people, but you know what? I've never met David and Karen in real life.
Say what? Well, I gotta tell you, it's a treat.
No, I've never met them in real life.
It's a treat. I gotta tell you, they're shorter than you'd think they were. But then again, most people in LA were. I was really surprised.
I'm probably shorter than you think I am too.
Also, I don't know if you ever noticed because you talk to David on the phone or on the show or something like that. He's white. I was shocked. Let's see here. Marinelle asked a couple questions. Sheri, if I can't make both days, can John come on the other day? Because I think that she's referring to the whole workshop thing.
Right.
Marinelle go one day, John go.
What's the difference? We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it offline maybe, and we'll see if we can work out something. Maybe she has to take on an extra duty to get that happening.
She takes on a lot of duties with John. She's a PMD. And
I don't know. I don't mean for John.
John Trigonis.
I mean for
John Trigonis, not John Reese.
IFC maybe, or we might need some helpers, so we might be able to work something out.
There you go. No, Marinelle wears many hats. I don't know if she wears that hat though. She actually was. She did really good. Actually, she helped out at DIY Days, and she took a bunch of footage and interviews that I'm still waiting to see. Marinelle.
Good.
So I want to again thank you for coming on and sharing all this stuff. I actually really had a good time tonight. A lot of times the interviews are very let's plug all your stuff and hopefully we can fit into 20 minutes. I really appreciate you taking like the full hour plus and just kind of chatting candidly about, what's going on and from your world there and everything. It's Sheri Candler. I like that. Actually, if you ever do a show,
can you believe that?
if you ever do a show, it has to be called Candid Candler. That's all I'm saying.
Maybe I should rename my blog that.
Yes. That needs to happen.
You think so?
No, I really, yes, and thank you for the free advice, by the way. It's still something we're working on our. It is tough, It's an interesting niche to be in, and I love what I do, but there's never been a job that I've both loved and hated so much in my entire life.
And you know that it takes time. It's not something that you're going to be able to, to monetize immediately. And when you were talking about Chris and you were talking about John and how they built up a career, Chris has been writing books since 1996. Right. It's not like he just now, 2 years ago, started a blog, and started getting people. He's had an audience for a while. It's just that it hasn't been online until now. So it's taken him a long time to build up that reputation and get people interested in his work and his name and what his advice. And the same with John. John's been, doing films and videos and things like that for 25, 30 years. So, this isn't an overnight success. It's not something that just happened in the last year. It's been in the making for a long time. So hopefully you can beat, 15, 20 years out by making your success maybe in 2 or 3 instead of 20.
What do you know? I'm just curious about John's movie, because I know he's working on the sequel right now. He's working on Bomb It 2. He's been traveling all around the world and stuff like that. And he did Bomb It 1, and then he kind of did the whole DIY distro thing. Tried to do a little bit of hybrid stuff. He made the deal with Babblegum and all that kind of stuff. Then we've got Think Outside the Box Office, the book, and all the stuff that's kind of stemmed from that. Has he found? First of all, is there a way to tell how many views he's basically gotten on Bomb It? Like, what's the box office, so to speak, on it? Not necessarily numbers in dollars, but in numbers of people that have seen that movie versus, maybe even the number of people that have read his book.
I don't know the numbers. I mean, as far as what you're talking about on Babblegum, how many people have seen it on Babblegum?
Even just as a whole.
I don't know.
No?
Because
Okay.
I don't work with him on Bomb It. I'm not his PMD on Bomb It.
Okay.
So you'll have to talk to him about what he's doing. And as far as still promoting that, he's just sold Israeli broadcast rights to his film recently. And that film came out 2-3 years ago. So he's still working that film, and this is what he also tries to make filmmakers aware of now. There's no such thing as, 6 months, you're going to have it all tied up and you're going to get all your money back. It could be 3, 5 years before you get your money back, especially DIY and hybrid. But that's better than never getting it back, never getting it distributed. So either you're patient or you just don't recoup.
I was talking with David Gertz recently online, and him and I were chatting, and one of the things that he said to me that kind of struck me, that it struck a chord with me, and I'm not going to quote him properly, but I'll give you the gist. The question and the thing we were talking about was, if you're an independent filmmaker and you're going to commit the next 3 years of your life to making, editing and posting and distributing this movie, should you, when you're budget in your, shall we say, your ability to live, so that you're only working on your movie versus having to take part-time jobs and all this other stuff, which will take time and effort and probably affect the way the end product looks. Should you budget in paying yourself to work on this movie for the next 3 years?
Sure, why not? I mean, yeah, I think you should. Your ability to raise that money is another story, but if you can, I definitely think that if you're going to be the one who's primarily working to promote that film and even, somewhat distribute it, because if you want to sell, off your own site or sell DVDs or pay for some theatrical expenses or traveling to festivals, all that's expense that you should budget for. But I don't think that, I don't think filmmakers don't do that because they have a moral conscience or something about it. I think they just don't feel like they could take that money out of the production and put it into their own pocket. They need every bit of money that they raise to go into the production.
All right, I just found that to be something that I know a lot of the low, no budget filmmakers really don't tend to think about. Is they make their movie, their production budget, and maybe if they're lucky raise enough for the marketing and the distribution side of it, and then it's like, well, I've got to live, I have to pay for this apartment, I have to pay for my car, I have to pay for all this stuff. So they take other jobs, or they if they're not in the industry, they actually have a job, and a day job, so to speak, and they do their 9 to 5, and then they get back to their movie afterwards. Is that really kind of what is distinctive between filmmaking as a hobby versus filmmaking as a career and a lifestyle? I mean, really devoting yourself 100% to, this is my career, this is what I want to do. Kind of like, I mean, even I'll say even like what I did with FilmSnobbery. I got laid off from my job, but this is what I do now. Like this, FilmSnobbery is me and Jerry and the rest of the crew here 24/7. I can't really talk for Jerry and the rest of them, but for me, it's 24/7. Do you find that there can be a distinction?
I think that there is, a reason why people say don't quit your day job.
Mm-hmm.
I think that if you're a low budget, micro budget guy, you can't really, or person, you can't really expect to make a living off of doing this. No. It would be great if you could find another job within the same industry that does sustain, so that you can do both until you get to a point where you can leave it. But it's not probably practical to look at filmmaking, especially low to no budget filmmaking, as a career that you do full time, unless you financially have the ability to do that because you have a wife or a husband who can support you, or you have a family that can support you, and until you can get off onto your 2 feet and make a living at this. But it takes a long time. And so I think that's just natural that for a lot of low-budget filmmakers, this is kind of a hobby on the side, not something that's sustaining their life right now.
So it sounds like what you're saying, the past 3 or 4 things that you've said in regards to both myself, in regards to John and Chris, and now filmmaking, the low, no-budget filmmaking as a whole, even is, and of course my laptop just shut down because my battery died. But what you're saying is that it's not a race. It's something that you start and you stick it out versus trying to just get your product to market. It's about slow and steady getting to the end and building reputations for both your products, your movies, your brand, your company, building up the budgets, building up the cachet for the actors, actresses, and stuff that want to work with you, and then building up the audience and getting all of this to culminate 2 or 3 years later with your release, and that is what's going to give you a successful run.
Right. We're talking about people who are entrepreneurs, people who are doing whatever they can to sustain themselves, and that doesn't mean that you can only do one thing. You have to do as many things as it takes in order for you to sustain and do what you really want to do. I mean, John teaches at CalArts, so there's a salary right there. He also, talks at lectures and things like that. He gets money from that. He's not, that's not a really sustainable income, but he gets money from that. He has a book. He gets money from that. He's got a lot of different revenue streams, and luckily they're all tied into being a filmmaker, because he's also a filmmaker, and he makes money off of that. But he's been able, and he works like hell. I mean, he's always got something going on. So definitely being an entrepreneur means that you have 7 days a week, no holidays, sometimes only 6 hours a night of sleep, so it's almost 24/7. But I think that if you talk to any entrepreneur, any small business owner in any kind of business, you'll find the same thing. You'll find people who work that hard because they're their own boss and they're not depending on somebody else to cut them a check and be employed. So as part of your life as being employed, that's so you can sustain yourself so that you can do the other part of your life, which is doing what you want. And there's no shame in that. I mean, I've seen that cop-out or something on other blog comments that are saying, oh, it's, about the guy with the film gigging, I think it was on Ted Hope's site or whatever, and somebody making fun of him for suggesting doing that. I think you do whatever you have to do to get your film out there, and why should you criticize somebody because that's the way they've chosen to live?
So you're saying there's no
If that's what they
right or-
believe in, and they passionately want to take their film out there and do odd jobs all along the way, that's their life, and they should be able to do that. Kudos to them for believing in it so much that they would devote their whole life to it.
So you're saying is there's really no right or wrong way. It's just a matter of getting the movie made and getting it out there. And however you end up getting it out there is not necessarily the wrong way. It could be freaking broadcasting it on the moon, but you have an audience on the moon, then hey, great, you've been released.
Right. Well, we're saying, the reason that we're doing this mad profession in the first place is because you're really driven and passionate about doing it, not because you think it's going to make you a good living. If you are looking for something to make you a good living, don't be a filmmaker. Don't be an actress. Don't do anything in the show part of show business. Be in the business part of show business, where people employ you and you can kind of be around those strange individuals that have this driving passion.
King is a fake says.
No, I don't think that the film business is the best business for you if you really want a stable life and a stable career.
Yeah. The King's of Thing says, has anyone here had a bad day and said, I'm going to quit making movies now? I had that day today, but I'm here.
But you know what? It's a lie. You think you can do it, but you can't.
No, you
because
can't.
The whole reason that you're in it is because you're mentally unbalanced, I think. And like Chris Jones is saying, that they're going to diagnose mental illness from creativity as a mental illness, that people who suffer from it have to do it. They have a compulsion and they have to do it.
I called one of my parents today and I said, hey Mom, I'm having a really horrible freaking day, and she says, and we were talking about the whole film snobbery thing. She goes, oh, maybe you should get a real job. And I'm like, oh, thanks, Mom. That's real Carol Brady of you. And we're talking about that, and I said, the thing is though, I can't see myself doing anything else. And I said, that's the sad part. Like, as frustrating as this, and this is similar to filmmaking in as much as I do put on a production, and I have to do some preparation and some scripting, kind of. In a way, and casting, Sheri is the lead. It's tough, and yet I'm gonna do it again next week. It's so bad.
Right.
But I'm gonna do it again.
So what you're going to do, though, is you're going to try your best to figure out how can you make this sustainable, because you've decided that this is the thing that really drives you and the thing that you're the most passionate about, and something that you can't imagine not doing. So you're going to have to figure out a way to be able to do it.
Yeah,
and that's just what we are, and I'm not going to sit here and tell you this is the way you should do it and there's no other way to do it. You're going to have to be creative. You're a creative person. You can come up with some creative solution that will allow you to do this and make a living from it.
Yes, and I'm hoping that also applies to everyone else out there, and you weren't just yelling at me. Okay.
No, not just you, but
No,
we were talking about you.
Well,
but the same for everyone else. If you have to teach, if you have to speak, if you have to write a book, if you have to, I don't know, work at McDonald's or whatever you have to do that allows you to have some time to have your creative passions because you have to do it, then do it. And I don't care what anybody tells you because you have to do it. At least it enables you to be able to have an outlet and do something that you really love in your life. Because at the end of the day, you're not going to say, I wish I had spent one more day at work. When you get to the end of your life, you're going to say, I wish that I had really done what I always wanted to do.
Or in this case, hopefully for me, that is spending one more day at work. But, but that being said, no, I think that is about as much of a truism as we're going to find on this show tonight. And I think I want to thank you again, Sheri, for coming on. I think that you're right on the money, and we all here respect what you do and what your opinions on what's going on are. You have a very unique perspective of it because you get to dabble in both the creative and the business side and see it from a different perspective. And I just want to thank you for taking the past almost now couple hours with us, and. And chilling, and thank you for coming on. and
Well,
answer.
thanks for having me, and I hope I didn't take up too much of everyone's time. I know they all want to go to bed now. Probably we lost our British friends.
You know, we might have lost a few of them, but I gotta tell you, they'll, you know, if it's good content, they'll stay. And I think we had some good content tonight. And for those of you out there, we should have an archive of this episode up. I hope to God we should have it up, as long as everything went well. I don't have a freaking director tonight, so as long as everything went perfectly. This should be up probably tomorrow. Well, oh crap, I'm in New York. This should be up soon.
Okay.
I can't give you a date because I'm going to be gone for the next 3 days. So I'll try to get as much done tonight as I possibly can, and hopefully we can get you up tonight before I hit the sack.
Okay.
So thank you guys for out there in the audience for showing up tonight, and thank you, Sheri, for being an awesome guest.
Thanks, Nick. Thanks, Jerry, for having me.
Thank you. Good night.
Thanks. Bye.
Good night, everybody.
Night.